Look at how much my skin broke out. And it's only on the left side too, like the right side's completely clear. It's funny because this all happened during my most recent semester of med school. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, it's because during these past 6 months, I was studying for board exams and I was spending all of my time studying. And when I studied, I would study with my head on my hand like this. So then I broke out just on this side. Hello, my name is Dakota, and today it is July 14th, 2025, and I just finished the first 2 years of med school. Now, before I even get into the video, I would like to start by saying that I still stand by what I said after the video that I made reflecting on the first semester of med school. And that would be that if you are considering medical school, but you are hesitant because you have received advice that you shouldn't because it is long and hard, or you're worried about how difficult it's going to be, even after 2 full years of med school, where it is purely academics and it is just studying the didactic material, I am here to encourage you to still pursue medicine. Become a doctor, do what it takes, go to med school, and make yourself proud. Of course, I am still just a med student, and I'm about to start my clinical rotations, which means that I am about to enter a whole new world because my world up until this point has been entirely books and studying. And I'm going to get a whole new experience with working in the clinic and working with patients. Generally though, what I hear is that as you go through med school, it gets better. And that every year, it doesn't necessarily get easier, but it becomes more fulfilling and enjoyable. So with that knowledge, and what I've gathered from my first 2 years, I'm still here to say that I encourage you. Please do what it takes to become a doctor if that's what you really want to do. Now, of course, I do understand why people discourage it because it is hard and it is a long path. But as long as you know what you're getting yourself into, it's still something that's really great and you can find fulfilling even during your medical school years, even though your ultimate goal is to become a doctor. So please take the time to think about your reasons as to why you want to do this and decide if this is the job, the career that you want to do, because ultimately at the end of the day, that's what it is going to be. And beyond just the next 10 years of doing the work to become a doctor, you have to think of the 10 years after that when you will be a doctor, and then the next 10 years after that when you're still working as a doctor. If time is something that really concerns you, I would still like to encourage you and say that it is never too late. Ultimately, this life is your own and the circumstances that everybody has is different. But if you can choose this because it's something that'll make you feel fulfilled, with the knowledge that that time and your life is going to pass anyways, then I think that at the end of the day, as long as you are happy with what you're doing, it's something great that you can do. And I understand that there are still a lot of barriers to entry, but if you can do it, then do it, because it's really not going to be misery all of the time, and it's going to be an experience, and it's going to be your life that you're going to enjoy and make the most of while you go through it. It is most definitely possible to love your life while you're in med school, so do not fear that commitment. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get into this. I am making this video as a reflection on the past 2 years of my life. These past 2 years I spent in medical school, so many of my reflections will be surrounding that, but there will also be a lot of reflections that are not directly related to that. I will be breaking this up into 2 sections, one being non-academic and one being academic, with 3 main points in each of them. The non-academic section will be general advice that I have figured out from living on my own and having to take care of myself, whereas the academic wisdom, I guess, is going to be the work ethic and lifestyle choices that I think I have developed over this time period. I hope that anybody watching this is able to glean something that is important and significant to them in their life, because ultimately I'm going to be talking about things that my younger self would have benefited from hearing, and I think would have expedited his growth, even if it would have taken living through and experiencing some of these things for himself to truly understand it as it pertains to him and his life. So without further ado, I'd like to start with some non-academic points. Starting off, I think it's important for you to know that people talk. They will talk to each other, and that's okay. Even in its least hostile and least gossipy form, people still talk. So things about you will get around. This is just a fact of life, and you have to be conscious of that. So lead a life that you are proud of and only give people good things to say about you. I don't want you to exhaust yourself trying to lead a perfect or ideal life all the time and putting on fronts so that people will only see you a certain way. But I want to make sure that you don't do things that you would ever want or need to hide. So make sure that you please don't do anything that you would ever be ashamed of others knowing or telling each other about you. And if this is something that you find yourself constantly thinking about and worrying about, I think that you should take a step back and evaluate both your authenticity and your morality. I think it's okay to have people dislike you so long as it's an acknowledgement of a difference in beliefs or opinions or outlooks. I think this is because when you are living up to your moral standards and you're becoming the person that you want to be, you can have the assuredness and the self-confidence that you don't need to worry about people necessarily liking you, because people that are kindred spirits and people that share your values and your beliefs will find you, and your group and your associations will naturally settle in as they're supposed to be. I think it's an important point here because when you are being authentic and living up to your own personal moral standard, people disliking you no longer becomes personal. There's a degree of respect between you and others that allows for the space for disagreement, because even in the face of differing opinions and perspectives, it becomes a matter of diversity. And when that is what you're faced with, it's ultimately just accepting that everybody is an individual and their own person. And I think the form of being disliked that we all fear is when we realize that somebody else doesn't like us for who we are. And the only time that's really going to happen is when you're constantly trying to pull a fast one on somebody or pull something over on them, because they'll realize that you're not who you're presenting yourself as and you're deceitful, and that's the reason that they dislike you. Them disliking you stems from the fact that they don't respect you and they feel contempt towards you because they don't believe that you're a good person, and you'll take that personally because you don't believe it either. If you're being a good person, people will see that and they'll respect that, and they'll see that the intentions are good and the efforts are being made to be a good person, and therefore they won't dislike you for any reason that you should take personal, but instead respect that you're being a good person, respect that you are your own person, and allow for that coexistence. And my next point is, once again, as always, make time for memories. I'm only halfway through medical school, but these past 2 years have really passed so quickly. Make time for things that you are going to remember forever, and do things like journaling, taking pictures, making videos that are going to help you remember those things forever. The days are going to feel long and you're going to be busy, and there will always be more work to do. But don't let these days go by in constant suffering because it's only a few years, or you feel like you always have to grind. This is pretty crazy for me to think about looking back on it, but since starting medical school, I have gone out and had fun and spent time non-academically more than I have ever before in my life. I think this is because before med school, I was working at a pace that, albeit impressive, was not in any way sustainable. And I didn't realize this until my fellow med students would be inviting me to go out, and I just couldn't comprehend that they had so much time to be going out like this. And seeing that they were being successful and that they were still able to go out and do things, I think I realized that I was doing too much. I didn't need to be straining myself like this. So then I also started trying to make a conscious effort to spend more time in conscientious breaks. And this especially became true during my second year. Admittedly, I was really timid about going out and having fun with my friends because, for one thing, I didn't want to do anything that would upset them, because I would be spending several years with them in very close proximity all the time, and I just didn't want to make that miserable by messing up somehow and ruining the dynamic. But also, I was afraid to spend time non-academically because I thought that if I failed, I would feel extremely guilty about it. It felt wrong not to be studying all the time, and I really did think that if I ever failed, I would blame myself for it and I'd just never recover from that. And spoiler alert, I very fortunately have not failed. Knock on wood. Perhaps it's because I took breaks that I was able to perform well, because by resting I was able to study better, retain more, and focus better. But also it give me the opportunity to look back on these 2 years fondly. I can look back on them and say I didn't hate my life. I don't want to forget about my life during those 2 years, and I can actually think of a lot of times and memories that I can sit back and just reminisce about. I'm really, really happy that I can finish my didactic years and look back on it and remember the time that I went snowboarding with my friends, or I ran the 10K on the Vegas Strip, or I hiked Half Dome in Yosemite with them. Even in less glamorous and less grandiose weekends that were more typical, I still had dinner with them and played volleyball with them and have plenty of memories and fun times that I can say, yeah, med school was great. I definitely had a hard time transitioning into more adult friendships where school doesn't necessarily give you the breaks on campus where you're forced to stay together and have time with each other. But nonetheless, I've had such a great experience with it, and I'm just really lucky to have such a wonderful class, a cohort that I can get along with like this. And this kind of leads me into my next point, which is if you care about something, you will always make time for it. I'm starting to get back towards the academic side of things, which I promise we'll get to right after this, because we're talking about time management. But you have so much more time in a day than I think you realize. And in med school, you will find out just how much you can fill that time with. Generally, if you are about to step into a position or take up responsibilities or do something that will take up more time, take up more resources, take up more focus, know that you will always, always, always make time for the things that you care about the most. If this isn't something that you've been thinking about much recently, that might be a sign that it's time to do some reflection and look at if you are spending your time how you want to be spending it and on the things that you want to be spending it. Because ultimately it is a decision how you partition your time, and you should be evaluating that and choosing to spend your time with people that matter to you and on things that you enjoy or care about. It's okay if it's time for a reset and you need to switch things up a bit to ensure that you are doing the things that you love. Because once again, nobody's living your life except for you. So you should make sure that you truly are content with the things that you are living your life through and the things that you're doing with your time. Also, kind of as a footnote to that point, you need to get out of your own way. Not everything has to be done the hard way. I'm a big advocate for the fact that you shouldn't take the easy way out, but you don't need to make it harder for yourself than it already has to be. Because there are a lot of times when you have the choice and you don't necessarily have to live a more rugged lifestyle, or you truly are oversimplifying it and it's making it harder for yourself. And some concrete examples of this is the fact that it doesn't make you any less of a man, and it doesn't make you any less of a minimalist, and it doesn't make you any more impressive as a busy person to be doing things like juggling a unnecessarily busy schedule. You don't need to fill it with things that are going to take longer than they should or they have to just because you have to do it your way. And for myself, I benefited a lot from getting a humidifier and using a razor that was not some cheap hotel razor, and also shaving with shaving cream instead of just using soap and water. Taking care of my skin, I think that's an obvious one that all guys kind of fall out of. And even decorating my room. It's okay to decorate your room, and doing so can also be better because it got my guitar off the ground and hung up on the wall. Especially if you take good care of your things, if you get yourself nice things, they will last a long time, treat you better, and you're gonna really take care of it, especially if you're so used to living on the bare minimums for so long. So do nice things for yourself, because ultimately they're gonna make your quality of life better and you will save money in the long run. Deep breath. So the non-academic things. The 3 main points are that people talk, so lead a life that you're proud of, that's authentic and moral. Make time for memories, because these years are going to pass and you don't want to live these years in misery because they are still part of your life. And you will always make time for the things that you care about. So make sure that you are also making it easier for yourself to spend time on the things that you care about by not making your life harder than it has to be. All right, on to the academic things. None of these are necessarily epiphanies, but I think I'll call them, I don't know, revelations, because they're things that a lot of times we already know, but we can always benefit from having reminders about them because we can let ourselves forget them when we're busy and working all the time and focusing on the next thing. First and foremost, be open to new experiences and opportunities. I say this as kind of a softer version of say yes to everything. Generally speaking, I like leadership activities, but never did I ever imagine that I would be a part of the leadership activities that I was while I was in med school, including SOMA and student government. But to my very pleasant surprise, they ended up being really gratifying. I think it's really easy to get comfortable doing the same things all the time and finding a rhythm that we can fall back on. I'd even argue that it's human nature to want to do that. But if your goal is to improve and to grow, especially during a time period when we're literally paying to be developed and trained into medical professionals, then you need to seek new experiences that will help you grow and become the person that you want to be. I think that to a degree we should always be seeking growth, but especially during these years, it's really, really important. Your growth will come from learning to navigate and trying to solve the problems that come with new experiences and novelties. Now, this doesn't need to be extreme, but opportunities don't tend to just fall out of the sky and land perfectly on our laps. It does sometimes, but most of the time it won't. So we need to also do some of the work that it takes to seek out those opportunities. And a general framework that can really help with that is looking at the next stage and seeing what they want from you and using that to guide what you're going to do and seek out. Rather than viewing the experience that the next stage wants to see in your resume as hoops that you have to jump through to get there, look at them as qualities that they want to see you already having, because those qualities will make you successful when you get to that stage. And then try to hone that skill in a way that is both gratifying and meaningful to you, so that when you get there, you'll be great from the jump. For example, right now I'm looking towards applying to residency because that's going to be the next stage in the progression of my career. And residencies will be looking to see if I got good grades, to see if I have research experience, and to see if I have leadership experience. But to take this a step further, what they're really looking for is to see whether or not I will be a competent physician, trying to see if I will have the efficacy that it takes to make sometimes what are life-changing decisions, and to speak up when it's necessary to, and see if I care about giving patients care that is the most modern and as cutting edge as possible. Do I think that it's a lot of work to demonstrate these qualities? Absolutely. And do I want to spend my time seeking organized activities that can demonstrate them? Not really. But ultimately, I do see the value in these qualities, and I want to be the best person that I can be, both for myself and for my patients. I say patients like I have any yet. One day for my patients. So I have and will continue to seek opportunities that will not only demonstrate these qualities, but continue to hone my skills so that I can improve in these qualities. It doesn't have to be much, but there's a lot of value in the consistency of doing a little bit every day, because a lot of little things add up to be quite a bit. Do a little bit a lot of times. Okay. My next point is about the medical education itself. When it comes to medical education, it's going to be a really big picture that you just have to jump into. There are many analogies that I'm sure you've heard and are really tired of hearing. I'm personally kind of tired of hearing the drinking from a fire hose analogy, but one way that I've really benefited from thinking about it is looking at it as learning a new language. Like learning a language, learning medicine is something that can really only be achieved and mastered through just time with the material and time in the environment. As you might know, I really, really enjoy languages, and I can kind of speak Vietnamese and I can kind of speak Spanish. Like learning languages, learning medicine isn't something that you can ever truly 100% gather from the classroom environment, because although the classroom environment might give you a level of understanding, to truly comprehend the intricacies, you have to spend time contextualizing it and manipulating it yourself so that you are active with it and not just a passive observer. So please don't ever get frustrated by a lack of knowledge, because there are so many little details and exceptions that you could never even fathom it until you come across it in context randomly. Because as much as your medical education may try to present it to you well organized and well deliberated, you might never truly understand it until it hits you at random. Sometimes that's just what it takes for it to really just click. Additionally, I think it's really important to just admit that you don't know things. I think a lot of medical students feel like they just have to know everything in order to be impressive, or some just to feel adequate. But the real learning happens at the point where you can see and know where your knowledge ends. One of my educators, a phenomenal doctor, likes to say that she doesn't start teaching us until she takes us to the end point of our knowledge. On the other side of that coin, nobody likes a know-it-all. We learn so much through listening to others, and we can learn a lot by trying to work through problems and find solutions together. Never, ever, ever stop listening to people, even about topics that you know a lot about, because everybody, and I truly mean everybody has something that you can learn from them. And last, but certainly not least, is that I'd like to reiterate that you are working with people. This might be one of those points that I come back to every single time, but it's really, really important to always remember that you are working with people and that every person is an individual in front of you. And I say this for two reasons. One of which is to acknowledge the humanity in your patients, but another is to make it easier, because when you remember that you're just talking to everyday folks, it becomes easier to talk to your patients, to talk to your peers, and even your preceptors. Your education is going to be focusing on diseases, symptoms at presentation, drugs, mechanism of action, side effects, and so on. The list goes on and on and on. And something that I've realized even before starting clinicals is how depersonalizing this is. Kind of like with how in social media you can forget that there are actual people on the other side of the screen interacting with you. When we're constantly focusing on buzzwords and buzzwords and buzzwords, it's easy to forget that these are really patients on the other side of these symptoms and diseases and drugs and mechanisms of action. Practice questions and case presentations may become brain numbing because of how many you're trying to get through all the time to just see as much as possible and learn as much as possible. But remember, keep in mind that every patient presentation, every case presentation, every practice question, these are based on real individual patients. So just don't let that get past you. And kind of as a note, you're never above anybody else, and nobody is ever above you. There may be gaps in knowledge where one person knows more about something or you know more about something, but that doesn't make you better or worse as a person. Everybody has something to teach you. You always have something to learn from people, but also your peers, your patients, your preceptors, they're still people too, and there are ways that you can connect with them outside of this because they have their own interests and hobbies and families and friends. Try to remember that even though you're only seeing them in their present state, they have a lifetime of memories and people that care about them. I think I'd like to tie this off by saying that you should be open to meeting new people because, kind of like with opportunities, you never know where it's going to take you, having a relationship with them. Okay. I think I've said everything that I wanted to say. So for my academic points, there was be open to meeting new people and opportunities because you never know where they could take you. Jump into your education and give yourself as much time with the material and just basking in the experience so that you can just gather as much as you can from it because it's like learning a language. You can't master it unless you just have time with it. And everybody you work with is a person. So speaking with them should be a little bit easier because you can remember that even your preceptors, your patients, and your peers, they have their own individual, unique interests that you can connect with them on. But yeah, I think that's all that I have to say for this. Obviously, with 2 years of living life and experiencing and going to med school, there's a lot that I could say, but trying to keep it as concise as possible. Those are the main points that I think I would have benefited from hearing sooner, and I hope some of you watching out there, if you made it to this point in the video, also find some value in. So thank you for your time, and I hope that you have the very best. I wish you the very best with all of your future endeavors.